This video was brought to you by Brilliant, and the first 200 people to sign up using the link below will get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Over the last month or so, there have been violent uprisings in Karakalpakstan, an autonomous region within Uzbekistan. These protests were sparked by Uzbek proposals to reduce Karakalpakstan autonomy. And while the protests have since subsided, largely thanks to some severe crackdowns from the state authorities, relations between Karakalpakstan and Tashkent, Uzbekistan's administrative capital, are at an all-time low. And secession is now looking like a real possibility. So in this video, we'll be taking a look at the protests themselves, what might happen next, and some of the implications for Uzbekistan's Central Asian neighbors, including Russia. So let's start with a bit of context. Karakalpakstan is a region of Central Asia that used to be part of the Kazakh Khanate and is today an autonomous republic located in western Uzbekistan. The people who inhabit the region are known as Karakalpaks, and they used to be nomadic herders and fishers. Their history means that they're culturally closer to the Kazakhs than they are the Uzbeks, which is part of the reason that they've retained some autonomy within Uzbekistan. All the way back in 1873, though, Karakalpakstan was annexed by the Russian Empire, before becoming an autonomous region known as the Karakalpak Autonomous Oblast within the Soviet Union in the early 1900s. In 1936, though, it was merged with the Uzbek SSR, but retained its status as an autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic, making it the only ASSR in Central Asia at the time. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, though, Karakalpak ASSR became the Republic of Karakalpakstan, an autonomous region within Uzbekistan. In fact, the original Uzbek constitution, finalized in 1992, gave Karakalpakstan a constitutional right to secession, which basically said that the autonomous Karakalpak government could hold a binding independence referendum whenever it felt like it. Now, so far this hasn't happened, largely because the region is too poor to do so. Until the end of the 20th century, the Karakalpak autonomy was mostly agricultural, and a lot of industry was focused on the Aral Sea, once the world's fourth largest lake. However, intensive Soviet irrigation practices, including the diversion of the two rivers flowing into the lake, eventually caused it to dry up, crippling the local economy. This dried up sea left behind a terrible legacy of toxic dust, created by dehydrated salt and pesticides, leading to a significant increase in regional rates of cancer, tuberculosis, and anemia. Compared with the rest of Uzbekistan, the Karakalpakstan region has significantly higher levels of infant mortality, heart disease, kidney disease, and cancer. And all the way through to today, Karakalpakstan is essentially an impoverished desert region, which is why, despite the fact it covers about half of Uzbekistan's territory, amounting to well over 200,000 square kilometers, it's home to just 2 million people and less than 10% of Uzbekistan's total population. Ethnic Karakalpaks represent a plurality of the population's region, although it's hard to gauge precise figures because much of the population lives in remote rural areas and Uzbek census data just isn't particularly reliable. Nonetheless, in the last couple of years, the region seems to have been on the way up. The new president has improved local infrastructure, and large oil and gas reserves were discovered in 2018. The president was then re-elected by a massive margin in 2021, and while the election was probably rigged, they genuinely are popular within Uzbekistan. So he said that he would be changing the constitution to allow him to stay on as president until 2036. Now, maybe surprisingly, this wasn't even that controversial. His predecessor used similarly questionable legal and constitutional tricks to stay in power from 1991 until 2016. However, when the new constitution was unveiled in late June, it also concluded a previously unmentioned proposal to scrap Karakalpakstan's constitutional opt-out. Essentially, as part of Uzbekistan's original 1992 constitution, Karakalpakstan has a constitutional right to secession. Article 74 of the Uzbek constitution states that the Republic of Karakalpakstan shall have the right to secede from the Republic of Uzbekistan on the basis of a nationwide referendum held by the people of Karakalpakstan. Although it is worth saying that independence could be vetoed by the National Uzbek Legislature. Anyway, the proposed changes to the constitution would have scrapped this article, and, well, it didn't go down well with Karakalpakstan. Just hours after the changes were announced, locals gathered in the regional capital to protest the new constitution. Videos of the event seem to show literally thousands of Karakalpaks gathered in the city, waving Karakalpakstan flags. Violence then escalated on the night of June 1st, and while it is hard to know exactly what happened, because Uzbek authorities staged a local information blackout and banned local reporters, according to authorities, 18 people were killed and 243 more were injured, including 18 law enforcement officials. And the Uzbek government allegedly even had to call in soldiers from outside the city, as local law enforcement officers had decided to side with the protesters. All of this combined then would represent the largest act of political violence in Uzbekistan since the 2005 massacre, when police attempted to quell anti-government protests by killing 178 people, according to official estimates. It's also worth saying that we should take all of these figures with a pinch of salt. Uzbek authorities have a political incentive to downplay the violence, and videos uploaded to Twitter seem to show blood-covered streets, although it is possible that these videos themselves are misleading. Anyway, in response, the Uzbek government scrapped the proposed changes and imposed a 1-month state of emergency, which will last until August 2nd. In keeping with local tradition, Uzbek authorities then blamed the violence on criminal gangs and, quote, foreign malicious forces whose main goal was to attack the territorial integrity of Uzbekistan and create an inter-ethnic conflict. Now, while protests have since subsided, relations between Tashkent and Karakalpakstan are now at a historic low, and the chances of Karakalpakstan's local government going for an independence referendum have increased substantially. If this were to happen, then we could see a new country in Central Asia for the first time since the 90s. As a final thing, it's notable that Russia didn't intervene to help Uzbekistan during this violence. And that's notable because Russian forces helped Kazakh authorities deal with other mass protests in January as part of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, a Central Asian organization that we've discussed in previous videos. This time, though, Moscow made it clear that they wouldn't be getting involved, and a Kremlin spokesperson described the protests as an internal matter. Now, this is probably because Ukraine has exhausted Russia's security capacity, but it's also worrying news for Asia. Both Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan have suffered serious political unrest in recent months, and a combination of pre-existing poverty, rising fuel costs, and a crippling recession in Russia, where many Central Asian rural youth usually migrate for work, mean that further political unrest is just more likely than ever. And if Central Asian authorities don't have the security capability to uphold regional stability, then we could see some very serious political upheaval in the near future. Ultimately, we'll have to wait and see how these protests play out, but this is the ultimate problem-solving exercise, something which is always at the heart of politics, whether it be trying to keep the electorate happy or handle geopolitical wranglings. So, if you want to be able to do what politicians often can't, then consider signing up to Brilliant. That's the STEM learning platform which actually features a class on the joy of problem solving. In that class, like all of their others, they use active learning techniques to help you learn complex subjects, like logical reasoning, deducing facts from fiction, and logic puzzles, with you learning through fun and engaging activities. These interactive classes cover all kinds of STEM topics too, from computer science and cryptocurrency to statistics and casino probability. So if you want to take your next step in STEM and support the channel at the same time, then you can sign up to Brilliant at brilliant.org/TLDR Global. And the first 200 people to do so will get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thanks for your support.